Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Boyhood. Boyhood is an interesting experiment in film, one that hasn't really been done before. Just kind of the idea of it was interesting enough, and I think can get you to the theater. But the reason it's being hailed as such a masterpiece, there's a lot of elements that make it into what it is. And it's kind of not really what you'd expect from a traditional film, especially a traditional film about growing up. And particularly the fortitude of Richard Linklater to shoot a film over 12 years and really to see his characters aging in that film. Now, certainly he's played with age in his before series also, but I think this is one of the things this film really is about, is almost like flipping through a photo album or going through someone's Facebook photos and seeing how they've changed over the years, but also being a slice of life film and also showing how all the actors have changed, not just the kid who plays Mason and Olivia, but also seeing Patricia Arquette and Ethan Hawke change, and how Richard Linklater changed from the beginning of the film when he was the director of School of Rock, really, coming off of his biggest commercial hit, till the kind of director he was at the end of the film. The whole idea of the experiment makes it worth at least a watch and makes it a really interesting, engaging, but also part of Richard Linklater's regular confident hangout movies. Boyhood is about the 12 years from 6 to 18 of Mason, played by L.R. Coltrane. He's being raised by his single mother, played by Patricia Arquette, and as he grows up and you see him move from various different homes throughout Texas. His father, Ethan Hawke, comes to visit every other weekend and disappears most of the time, but then shows up. And you see his sister grow up, Olivia, played by Richard Linklater's real daughter, Lorelei Linklater, and Patricia Arquette moves them from various stepfathers and various homes as she changes throughout that time, and we see them change as well. How Richard Linklater made this film is he would shoot a segment every year, about 10 to 15 minutes, and keep evolving the series. And this is just almost like a collection, but there's no marker that says, oh, and this is 2003, this is 2004. They don't really do that. In fact, you don't really notice, and then they cut, and suddenly Mason, his physical appearance looks different. He's the easiest way to tell, and since he's the focus of the movie. Doing that, I semi-wonder, when Richard Linklater made this film, did he edit and complete each segment and keep it around the way he had it when he originally cut it each year? I felt like at the beginning I was really seeing Richard Linklater in the early 2000s, whereas later it felt like I was seeing current Richard Linklater. And I think he said he kind of re-edited them all together. If you are a major Richard Linklater fan, this would definitely be the film for you. Obviously, you've been anticipating this because he's been talking about it for the past 12 years. If you know that part of his filmography very well, and you could probably track, like, okay, this segment is from this year, you could go, oh, he was working on this, and this kind of reminds me of this from his filmography and such. But it did feel like him changing as a director as much as Mason was changing, which is kind of an interesting thing. I've never seen a director's style change throughout a movie before. I don't think any film has ever attempted to do that. Film series have, and Michael apted with the Up series, the Harry Potter films, you have things like that, but no film has decided to do this in one almost 3-hour film. The acting kind of changes. Patricia Arquette and Ethan Hawke keep it fairly consistent. Obviously, they're more seasoned than these kids are, and their performances kind of change with age and with the kind of character they're playing and what's happened to that character throughout that time. But the kind of performances that L.R. Coltrane and Lorelei Linklater give definitely do change, especially him as Mason changes throughout. And he kind of gives different performances for different years at certain points. When you're seeing a story of someone's life, it's almost little moments. I feel like the bigger moments are like later in the film. There's certain moments you miss. You don't see his first kiss. You don't see the first time he drove or his first beer or something. But you kind of really feel like you understand him. Where at the end of the film, I did feel like I'd really seen this kid grow up, like I was a participant in his life. And there's a certain feeling when you see your little cousin and you go to their graduation party and you feel like, oh man, look at what time has happened, what this culture has produced. And in Boyhood, you get to experience that in a film, and Richard Linklater's managed to wrap that emotion up. I really am kind of shocked at how you see all these things evolve. I mean, it's interesting the certain things that they kept in. They didn't have too many things like, man, the stock market is going to go up forever. The only thing that's fairly dated conversation is they actually talk about if there'll ever be more Star Wars films in 2008, which is funny now, but at the time, you know, they had no clue, and they don't do too much of that. He does kind of capture certain moments like Obama's first election and certain music that was popular, certain technology that was in at that time. It feels more like he's capturing that period. If he had filmed and he was doing a period piece, it would have been more winking, and it kind of feels more real, like you're really experiencing like 2002, 2003. I do think a lot of people who are the age that Mason is in this film will have a deeper connection to this film, and it's interesting that a lot of Richard Linklater's career, this or Dazed and Confused, really mean a lot to like younger people. You know, when you think about his filmography with like this and Dazed and Confused, in some ways it feels like the reason people like this is because of the experience of it, because you're seeing such an odd experiment in filmmaking and how it all comes together and all the things you're witnessing, and how there's never really been a film like this before, and the way it's all put together is so impressive in itself. Not just the pure experiment of it and the fact that this film exists, which is really awe-inspiring in itself and shows the dedication of a director, especially Richard Linklater. But I think it's that the passive way about life and how he's done his hangout movies, which makes you feel like you're really there, that you're there at certain moments, but you've missed bigger moments. It's almost like knowing someone, where you're not there for absolutely everything, and no one can ever be there for everyone for at the exact big moments. That's impossible. So you kind of feel like you're more of an active participant than a lot of films really could. And seeing someone age and become the person they are, it's interesting to see kids grow, because when they're a kid they're one thing, and then you see them when they're older and you're like, wow, that's like a completely different person than the person I originally met. Kids change more dramatically than adults do, and it's easier to notice. I was kind of taken aback by how much I got into it and enjoyed it, and how passive it could be. You can have a biopic and you can have makeup and CG and all that stuff, but Richard Linklater showed the most natural thing that all humans can experience, and that's aging. And he did it in his natural kind of hangout way, and showing the kind of director he was and eventually became by the end of this film. You can see his strengths as a director, as a commercial director, and kind of more of an art house director, and how he knew how to move that through this film to make a strong portrait of a boy who eventually becomes a man when he moves into his freshman college dorm room. I don't think there'll probably be another film like this, and I don't think there really could be. And it does remind you in a lot of ways of a film like The Up series, and I would see another film called like Manhood or something. I really wouldn't mind this kind of idea to keep going, but I think this is kind of it, unfortunately. The real thing about any experiment is not just the experiment itself, it's the effect of the experiment. And I think Boyhood has an effect that is unlike any film you will see. It's more than just seeing someone age and looking at a bunch of photos. I mean, they had the photos when I left the film at the IFC Center, and you know, that's more than the film. It's kind of experiencing someone and experiencing a life that maybe is fictitious, and definitely is. There's nothing more human than seeing someone age and change and experiencing that throughout your life. It didn't feel like I was watching a great film. It felt like I was watching someone I know grow, the part of life that we all are going to experience. And I think that makes it probably such a great film, is that there's no other film that's really been able to capture that as well as Boyhood. It's the kind of interesting film experiment that shows you what you can do with filmmaking and age and time and editing. It's quite the experience, and it's quite the experiment. And watching all that unfold in front of you is as kind of glorious as it is to see happen in real life. You kind of let it unconsciously unfold, much like life. When you see someone's aging, you're not thinking about it day to day. And I wasn't necessarily thinking about it all the time, but at the end I was really attached to these characters. I could really sense I really went through something with them, even if this isn't really necessarily a plot-centric film. And I think that's the real key to this movie, is that it can do all this with an audience and do all this with the viewer without having any of those things. So if you have seen Boyhood and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.